So there's a certain Jeff Okuda who was traded this week. It was the biggest news all week. It broke when I was in the sound booth actually on Big D Energy. I believe it was on Tuesday, and it was all the rage. They traded him to the Atlanta Falcons for a 5th-round pick. And it got me to thinking about another Detroit Lions draft pick from a few years ago who has been a bit of a disappointment. He was a 2nd-round pick, not a top 3 pick, but that is one DeAndre Swift. And DeAndre Swift is somebody that coming into this past season, I had high hopes for. One of my first crazy declarations, which turned out to be crazy, I was in that booth, and Neil Rule, who was sitting right here, came to me and said, "What are your thoughts on DeAndre Swift?" This was in the offseason. I think this was even before the summer. I said, DeAndre Swift will lead the NFC in rushing this year.
You said that?
I said that. And I could not have been more wrong.
Hard pass.
And the biggest problem with him has always been health. And now I've kind of went the opposite way on DeAndre Swift because I think he's getting a little bit of a pass from some of the fans. People say, oh, he's great when he's healthy. Did you know his career high in rushing yards for a season is 617? That's not very good. And a lot of people might say, how many games did he play? Right, that's the problem. He never plays a full season. Everybody talks about how good he is catching the ball out of the backfield. His career high in receiving yards for a season, 453. For a running back, that's fine, but people are acting like he's Christian McCaffrey or something like that. If he were healthy, he'd have 1,000. You're intimately familiar with Christian McCaffrey as a 49ers fan.
Don't ever use that comparison.
And maybe
it's blasphemous.
And maybe nobody actually said that, but people act like
only you.
People act like he was gonna, like he has this potential of being a 1,000 guy. So the question is, and I'm gonna start with this one: do you trade DeAndre Swift? I would probably say no. I would let him play out this upcoming year. It's his last year under contract, and just see what he can give.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you wanted to trade him, what value does he have?
I mean, Jeff Okuda got you a 5th-round pick, so I don't know. Probably not a whole lot.
Exactly.
Let's see what you can get out of him and just let him go, because DeAndre Swift is certainly not someone that you're going to pay. I don't foresee – do you foresee him playing a full season this next year?
I would like to see him play at least 12 games because I really think I love what he brings, the versatility. He's really quick and fast. He's a great change-up back.
He is.
And can catch it out the backfield, you know. But man, if he can stay healthy, I think he adds a lot to the Lions' offense. But like you said, man, availability is the best ability.
It is the best ability.
And he has to be available for us to see, you know?
Yeah, he has to be available, and he just hasn't been.
Yeah.
And we're coming into the next season with David Montgomery as their RB1, and he's obviously more of a complete back. He's a clear upgrade over Jamal Williams. He provides you something catching the ball out of the backfield, which Jamal Williams really didn't do. David Montgomery was sort of bred from day one to be an RB1, and Jamal Williams was thrust into that role, although he did perform admirably last season. So DeAndre Swift isn't going to be asked to do much. At this point, with what I think you could get for him, which is basically nothing.
Right.
You might as well just let him play the season out and just milk what you can.
Right.
Maybe he'll have a career year, but even if he does, I probably wouldn't pay him. But that leads to the discussion of, if you trade DeAndre Swift, if you don't see him as part of the future, do you draft a running back? And one of the running backs that's gotten a lot of steam moving forward is the guy that I believe, and I think everybody believes, is the clear #1 prospect at running back, and that's Bijan Robinson.
Well, they're comparing this guy to Saquon Barkley. Like, that's the type of back they're saying he is. And, man, they don't come around often.
They don't. He's certainly the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley. I mean, Saquon Barkley was so highly thought of that in this era, he was drafted #2 overall, which is insane because running backs have been a little bit devalued. Although there have been some first-round running backs recently who have panned out. You look at Saquon, you look at Zeke Elliott, you look at Christian McCaffrey, you look at Josh Jacobs. It's not necessarily a losing cause. I'm not sure if I pull the trigger on Bijan at 18. It depends on what they do at 6. I think there's a lot of running backs that you can get later on in the draft. I'm a big fan of Illinois running back Chase Brown, who had over 1,600 yards, 5 yards a carry with a subpar offensive line and no quarterback health. And one of the ways that one of the ways that I gauge players, and I know this is a little bit homerish, I'm a Michigan fan, obviously. I watch all of their games very, very intensely, and I look at what a player does against Michigan. I heard a lot about Chase Brown, and against Michigan, he almost single-handedly carried that offense by himself, rushed for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, including one which gave them the lead, which basically, oh my God, when that happened, I was losing my mind. So he's a guy that I think is really shifty. He's a guy that I would go after, but are you a fan of maybe taking a flyer on Bijan at 18?
I like him. I don't think he'll be around then. I think somebody will take him before then. It just depends, like you said. It depends on what we do with the first pick.
Yeah.
I think that makes everything else fall in line. And with this regime and the way they've been putting the team together, you got to trust the fact that they're going to make the right moves, or they're going to make the moves that make the most sense.
Sure.
Are they going to take a defensive lineman or a linebacker? Are they going to go that way? We don't know. Somebody was saying, hey, get an offensive lineman to shore up the offensive line to make sure. I mean, we got to see which way they go.
Well, let me pose this to you, because I wouldn't hate it if they went after Bijan Robinson at 18. In a lot of ways, it might even be a steal. But if you draft Bijan Robinson at 18, in order for it to be worth it, you basically have to come right in and be a top 3 to 5 running back in the NFL, basically right away for the length of their first contract. But I do think Bijan Robinson has that potential. I mean, you look at him, he has everything you want. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the between the tackles power. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. One of my favorite Bijan Robinson stats, he averaged 16 yards per catch. And a lot of that is obviously yak yards on screens, but at the same time, that's what you're supposed to do as a running back.
Exactly.
You get the ball in space and you go. Bijan Robinson was last year's Doak Walker Award winner, had over 1,580 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry. And let me pose this to you guys. And this is something that maybe might get you guys a little bit excited about Bijan Robinson. There is precedent for a first-round running back, a highly touted running back, coming into a situation with a great offensive line, which the Lions do have. I think we all agree that's the Lions' strength. What about in 2016, Ezekiel Elliott gets drafted to the Dallas Cowboys? They kind of luck into him. And Zeke leads the NFL in rushing his rookie season. And why did he do that per se? One of the reasons was he's obviously super talented. People forget how good Zeke was. But he was running behind the best offensive line in the NFL with Zach Martin, with Tyron Smith, and Travis Frederick at the peak of their powers. I'm not saying that Bijan Robinson is going to come in and be rookie Zeke Elliott. I'm just saying that he's coming into a better situation than, say, like a Saquon Barkley did, or even a Josh Jacobs, or even a Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, we forget, had struggles his rookie year. But Bijan Robinson would be coming into a perfect situation. Does that sway you at all?
Like I said, I like the idea of it. I just think it really depends on what we do with the first pick. But getting a running back, knowing that you have a great offensive line, that's gonna do nothing but help. That any team that drafts a running back and your offensive line consists of you and me, they're gonna struggle. They're gonna struggle. So I mean, I think it just has to make sense. And a lot of teams, they get caught up in, I'm gonna draft the talent, but I think you have to draft not only what you need, but what's compatible to what you already have. Mm-hmm. Quarterbacks are number one. You got to have a quarterback. But then you can draft a great quarterback and ruin him if you don't have an offensive line. We've seen that happen time after time. The quarterback's supposed to be, this guy's, what Derek Carr's brother,
David,
was ruined.
He was absolutely ruined. That wasn't his fault.
Yeah, he was ruined.
He got
no line, no help whatsoever, and now we'll never hear from him again.
Now he got taken by the expansion Houston Texans. I think he has the record for most times sacked in a season at 76. God. He was running for his life. I feel bad for him because I think Derek will even tell you that David was better. He was the number 1 overall pick, but he went to probably the worst situation you could possibly ever go to. But I guess the reason why I'm talking about running backs is DeAndre Swift. I think it's absolutely on the table that he's traded, and it's definitely on the table that he's not part of the future. So far, he's been disappointing. Could he help us this upcoming year? Absolutely. But you're not going to ask him to be a number 1. I thought he was going to be the number 1 last year, but it didn't happen. Maybe he's just not built for it. JB, what say you on DeAndre Swift?
I'm probably with you on this. I'm just going to let him play out this last contract year that he's got. See if he shows any flashes of something that you might want to keep for the future. Because, honestly, as Lindsey said, you're not going to get too much for him right now.
No.
And now would be the best time to do it. Otherwise, another season's going to pass, another tread of those tires. Running back shelf life don't last that long. So, yeah, just let him play out what he has right now. And, I mean, if you see something in him, bring him back. If not, just let him walk.
And Sam, when did this water down? When did the NFL start watering down running backs so fast? Like, it happened overnight.
Yeah.
Like, running backs used to be like a big hot commodity in the NFL, but it just all of a sudden, like, hey, we're running back by committee, and now, we don't have to pay you, and we're gonna get a young guy. And Derrick Henry was phenomenal, but now it's like, hey, we don't really need Derrick Henry. We can trade him. I mean, when did that happen? It seemed like it happened overnight, all of a sudden.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was on Ermanni and Edwards yesterday with Braylon, and I mentioned that if this were the 70s or 80s, we might be looking at Bijan Robinson as the number one overall pick.
Right,
I mean,
right.
You saw guys like Earl Campbell and George Rogers, Barry Sanders,
Yes.
Walter Payton from your alma mater, Jackson State, that were, I don't know if they were all number one picks, but they were top 5 picks, and there was
Right.
no doubt about it. And all of them except George Rogers became dominant Hall of
Right.
Fame NFL
Right.
players. And that's what you wanted a dominant running back then. It was more of a running league. It wasn't a passing league. So Bijan Robinson, he might have played in the wrong era, but I also think that he's one that could be different. I think running backs in a lot of ways can be a dime a dozen. I mean, a guy like Jamal Williams can rush for 1,000 yards in a season behind the Lions offensive line. No disrespect to Jamal Williams, but
Yeah, but they're playing, almost double the games that they used to play. So 1,000 yards is really not what it used to be.
yeah, when like O.J. Simpson and those were number one, he was a top, I think, 3 draft pick himself. He had 2,000 yards in 14 games. Yeah, at one point it was a 14-game season. So
Right.
I think a lot of them probably don't respect like the 1,000 yard.
Right.
I don't even think Jamal got to 1,100 in 17. I see exactly.
See what I mean? Like Eric Dickerson would rush for 2,000.
Oh, Eric Dickerson. Don't
You
get
know
me
what
started
I'm
on
saying?
Eric Dickerson. I love Eric Dickerson. He's another one. Came right in 1,800 his rookie year. 2,000. He still has the record.
Yes.
His second year. Absolutely.
So 1,000
incredible.
yards for these guys to me is like, yeah, okay, he's supposed to do that.
Well, let me end it on this. Do you think that Bijan Robinson, wherever he goes, he's the type of player that can be drafted and right away be a top 3 to 5 running back in the NFL?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Definitely.
Saquon did it.
Yeah,
Zeke
I
did
think
it.
he can do that.
Another one, Todd Gurley, was another one who was drafted high.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
Oh, God.
But if you can get 5 years of elite Bijan Robinson with this offense, I don't know. The sky is the limit.